Today we're starting off our first hour TED Talks with Miss Fugedi, and she'll be doing a speech with the tagline, "Does my head look big in this?" So if we could all welcome Miss Fugedi out.
The craziest thing that I have ever done is to jump out of a moving aircraft at 3,000 feet up in the air on purpose. I'd like to say that I did this because I'm a risk taker and I like to try new things, but the reality is I did it to impress a boy. So as I'm standing at the edge of the aircraft, peering down at all of the miniature houses, I can't help but to think, is this boy really worth it? When you jump out of an airplane, they tell you that you're supposed to count to 10 before you pull the cord, which is supposed to open your parachute. There's nothing quite as scary as free falling through the sky at top speeds without 100% certainty that that parachute's going to open, and if it doesn't, you're gonna die. So as I fell through the air, my hand was on the cord for dear life as I counted to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I pull the cord, I'm shot up into the air as the wind goes underneath my parachute, and then I slowly start to slow down. When I discover it's safe, I unclench my fist, I lower my shoulders, and I open my eyes. And it's beautiful. It's funny how things can look different from a different perspective. The tops of houses, the treetops, all the cars look like miniature Matchbox cars. And as I effortlessly glided down to the ground, there is nothing like the exhilaration that I felt. And as I landed, I thought, I did this. I jumped out of an airplane. The reason that I did it is not as important as the fact that I did it. And I thought, if I didn't allow myself to take this risk, if I stayed in my comfort zone, I would have never known the adrenaline rush that I could have felt from such an experience. A comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there. Up until last year, the scariest thing that I ever did was jump out of an airplane. Stupidly, I had thought, if I can do this, I can do anything. And then May 9th, 2017 happened. I remember it clearly because that was the day that I died. Before I tell you how I died, let me tell you a little bit about how I lived. From a very young age, maybe 3 or 4, I remember being called cute. I was a short little Polish girl, chubby cheeks, with really pretty long golden hair. And I used to make my mom put it up in curlers every night so that I would wake up with curly, beautiful golden locks. In fact, at one point my mom said that she had to cut my hair because she didn't want me to overshadow my sister because I was getting all the compliments. My sister was beautiful in her own right, but I was every stereotype of what a little girl should be. My mom didn't give me the message that society, or the message that my appearance made me valid, but society did. My hair was by far my finest accessory. Wasn't it pretty? Easy to style, easy to manage, constantly complimented. It was the mane that framed my face because I did not think that my face was pretty. And if I could be the tall, thin, pretty blonde and make everybody else believe that I was the tall, thin, pretty blonde, then I was golden because I didn't have to be exposed and I didn't have to try new things because I didn't think I had anything else to offer. I was always afraid of getting found out that I wasn't good enough, wasn't smart enough. There's a plaque on my desk that reads, "I'm pretty sure I have no idea." That epitomizes what I thought that people would think about me. And then on May 6th, I was in Chicago with my husband celebrating our wedding anniversary. On May 8th, I was a counselor, a friend, a wife, a mother. On May 9th, I became a cancer patient. My life was now divided into 2 parts, before cancer and after cancer. I remember it clearly because it was 8 a.m. on May 9th when my phone call rang at my office, and it was my doctor calling me with the results of my biopsy. "Hi, Monica. This is Dr. G. Calling with the results of your biopsy, wondering if you can come in at 11 a.m. for an appointment." Well, that seems kind of strange, but okay. But what are the results? We don't like to have these conversations over the phone. Have you ever had anybody tell you bad news by not telling you bad news? So clearly I knew what it was at that point. So I said, "Do I have cancer?" "Yes, it's cancer." And then she started rattling on all these words that had no meaning to me at all, and I stopped her and I said, "I'm sure that everything you're saying is very important and very meaningful, but I stopped listening after the word cancer. I have cancer." Such a big word. It's like a 3-ton brick being thrown at you. It's like a tsunami forming with its sole goal to envelop you in its waves. And there's nothing that I can do to get out of it. I got off the phone, I called my husband, told him I'd meet him at home at 10:30, and I went about my day for the next couple hours, because that's what you do when you get life-changing news, right? That's what I did. Because I thought that if I just went along business as usual, that somehow I wouldn't have cancer. But that didn't happen, and we got to the doctor at 11 a.m., and she started telling me about what my cancer was, stage 2 breast cancer. And then she started rattling off for about 20 minutes about what they did to treat that kind of cancer, and she started talking about surgery and radiation, and I'm thinking, this is great, I can do surgery and radiation. This is fabulous, because I didn't hear chemotherapy, and if I don't hear chemotherapy, that means I can keep my hair. And if I can keep my hair, I can keep my identity. This is fine. And then she said, "But because your cancer is so invasive and so aggressive, we're going to start with chemotherapy." Waterworks. I mean, uncontrollable tears. My doctor was clearly nervous because she just kept talking, and my husband looked at me with helplessness in his eyes, and I looked at him with pity in mine, as if to say, "Please make this go away, make this stop." But he couldn't, and I couldn't. The next day, the phone calls started coming in, one after another. I have never been so popular. Doctors calling to schedule MRIs, CT scans, echocardiograms, oncology appointments, follow-up visits. My head was spinning just as fast as my reality, and I just wanted to go back, because I was not this person that was going to be able to handle this. I was not the person that was going to be able to make lemonades out of lemons. I was not this person that was going to come out the other side a stronger person. This was going to destroy me. I wanted to stay where I was, because this is where I was comfortable. I was comfortable being the tall, thin, pretty blonde. But a comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there. As people started finding out about my diagnosis, they told me that I was handling it well, but I wasn't. I cried all the time. I couldn't sleep in the middle of the night. I'd wake up crying. I'd cry on the way to work, cry home from work. When no one was looking in the middle of the day, I'd shut my door and I would cry. I was afraid, and I couldn't stop crying. Everywhere I look, when I see people describing cancer, I see the word fearless. On coffee chains, t-shirts, hats, fearless. What a stupid word fearless is. It's so interesting how society has taken such a pure emotion and put a label of shame on it, so that if we feel fear, we also feel weak. But if you just got a life-changing diagnosis and your life is about to change and you don't feel fear, I'm wondering if you're human. I was looking at a mountain that I had to climb over, and I didn't know that I had the right climbing shoes. I would take one foot at a time, and I hope I don't slip. You might call that fearless. I call it life. I'm just a girl who has cancer, who doesn't want to have cancer, so is doing everything she can to not have cancer. Chemotherapy started on May 31st. I brought with me my bag of supplies, my blanket, and my husband. The room looked just as I envisioned that it would. It had recliner chairs and IV poles, and everyone had different amounts of bags of poison attached to them, designed to get rid of their specific type of cancer. I had 5 bags. And I looked around, and some people had hair, some people didn't, but I thought, these are my people now. I am forever going to be a part of their story, and they will forever be infused into mine, and none of us want to be reading this book. My first chemo treatment lasted for 5 hours, and the days that followed, I sat in anticipation, waiting to get sick, constantly checking my hair for signs of thinning. I hoped more than anything that my hair would not fall out before school got out, because I was not strong enough to handle all of the questions that I would get about why don't you have hair, are you okay, are you sick? And I definitely didn't want my hair to fall out before graduation, because I call names at graduation, and I didn't want to stand up in front of all of those families exposed. Thankfully, that didn't happen, and my hair did remain intact until after school and until after graduation. And as I drove to the graduation venue, I cried the whole way there. This was going to be the last public appearance that I would make, where people would not know that I have cancer. People told me that I look nice. They won't tell me that for much longer. They told me that my hair was pretty. Time's running out on that too. Soon I won't be the tall, thin, pretty blonde. Soon I will be the cancer patient. When people describe me, they'll say, you know, the one with the headscarf. And I want to go back. I don't want to do this. Taking a shower has become a traumatic event. When I put a brush through it, it takes chunks of my hair hostage. Soon I'll wake up to find my hair looking back at me on my pillow, and the question won't be if, but when to shave it. When I knew that chemotherapy was going to be part of my treatment plan, a lot of people said, just shave it off, it's less traumatic that way, but that didn't really pass the out loud test to me. Why would I be ugly before I had to be ugly? So I decided to keep my hair until I couldn't do so and still manage an element of cuteness, because it's so much easier to get rid of something that you hate than it is something that you love. Kind of like a breakup, so much easier to break up with someone that you don't love than it is when you still love them. So yeah, taking a shower has become an interesting event. I had to resort to wearing my hair curly because I couldn't put a brush through it without it falling right out of my scalp, and I couldn't blow dry it, so this way I could just scrunch it up, and this is how I would go. This was the last day that I had hair. I didn't know it at the time. The day that my hair stopped falling out, I put hair conditioner in it, and instead of it just effortlessly going down the strands of my hair, it got stuck, and it knotted up. And I couldn't unknot it without pulling it from my scalp. So I got out of the shower, I got dressed, and I handed my husband a pair of scissors, and I turned the other way because I couldn't bear to look at what was about to happen. As he started methodically chopping my hair, giving no regard to aesthetic, and with each cut of the scissors, a piece of my identity fell to the ground along with the hair. And when we decided that he could no longer cut with scissors, we gave my son Jacob the razor. Because when you're diagnosed with cancer, you're not the only one with the diagnosis. It happens to your whole family. And my little 8-year-old boy was scared. He was afraid that I was going to lose my hair and that I was going to die. So we told him, when my hair is gone, that means it's working. The good guys are winning. So he took that razor like a champ, and he plowed through my hair, and I tried to put on a game face because he was so proud, because he knew this meant Mommy was going to be okay. But I was dying with each hair follicle that fell to the ground. And when he was done, I looked at myself in the mirror, and what used to be a 4-head is now a 5-head, because when you have no hair, there's your face. And I didn't like my face. I looked everywhere for chemo scarves. I hated them all. They made me look like I had cancer. I spent the summer being sick, then not being sick, then being sick again. And you know, when people say you're stronger than you think, that's just as silly as fearless is. Because sometimes people are just as strong as they are, and sometimes just showing up is success. So when I am doubled over in pain in the bathroom and I can't get out of bed because I'm so tired, and I am winded just walking from one end of the room to the other, and I have to tell my 8-year-old that I can't play with him because I'm too sick, I'm supposed to say, wait a minute, you forgot. You're stronger than you think. It doesn't work that way. I was strong as I was, and that's as strong as I could be. And that should have been okay. As July turned into August, I started to have panic attacks. Because school was about to start soon, and it's not like I work in an office building with 10 or 20 people. I essentially work with 2,000 people when you count in parents. There was only a small handful of people that knew that I even had cancer, and I couldn't hide it, and I didn't want to talk about it, and so I didn't know what to do. So, true to who I am, when things are awkward in my life, I get really awkward. So some of you might have seen this elephant in my room. This elephant acts as a symbol because we all have elephants in our room, right? Mine's just visible. And I put this in my room kind of as a joke so that people might say, hey, what's with the elephant in your room? And I'd say, you know, it's the cancer. I'm sure you're wondering why I don't have hair. Let me tell you about it. That never happened, and I don't ever talk like that either. But sometimes I do. But what it did, it allowed people to feel safe to talk about it. And I spent the first couple weeks of school walking around feeling completely exposed and completely vulnerable, two of the worst emotions for me. Because I thought, I don't know who I am, and I don't think I'm smart, I don't think I'm pretty, I don't know what to do. People don't know how to respond to me, and I don't know how to respond to them. So what I ended up doing out of necessity more than anything else is I started being vocal about who I was. And I leaned into that feeling because I don't like to be a victim. And I didn't want to hide behind cancer, and I didn't want to hide at all anymore. This was my chance to find out who I am, Monica, aside from the illusion of beauty that I created for myself. So I started to talk. And what I did was, what I found is that other people found their story in mine. Because you don't have to have cancer to have similarities, because we all have feelings and we all have fear. We all feel vulnerable. And my vulnerability allowed other people to feel comfortable being vulnerable in my presence. And that's important to me because I don't ever want anyone to feel uncomfortable in my presence. And it allowed me to connect with people on a much deeper level, and it allowed me to connect with new people. And I discovered that people are good. They're really good. And they want to help. And I learned a little bit more about who I was, and I wrote a book. I'm writing a book. I wrote a blog. And I make scarves for cancer patients because when you're going through something so ugly, you shouldn't have to look ugly. And you know what? No one's told me that I suck yet. More importantly, I don't think I suck either. It's funny, the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. When our story doesn't match with our reality, we tend to become anxious, at least I do. For 43 years, I told my story to myself that I wasn't good enough and I had nothing to offer to this world. And what I found through this year, is that nobody ever thought of me as the tall, thin, pretty blonde, sadly. Nobody ever thought that I had nothing to bring to the table. These are all labels that I put on myself. And now, I talk about my fears so that they don't have power, and I name my demons so they don't have power either. And I lean into my feelings. And when I stepped out of my pretty little comfort zone, I grew. And maybe I grew out of necessity, but I allowed myself to feel those emotions, and because of that, I grew. And I'm not done yet, because my scarf now has become just as much a security blanket for me as my hair has. And I need to step outside of this comfort zone. And then when I'm done with that, there'll be another comfort zone, because that's what life is all about. My hair is growing back now. I don't know what it's ultimately going to look like, but I know that it's going to be stronger than the hair that left, because it fought to get there. Life is not that different from jumping out of an airplane. First, you have to take a leap of faith. Then you got to free fall for a while. Hope your parachute opens, but when it does, and you can look around, you can really see things from a different perspective, and it is beautiful. I don't believe that everything happens for a reason. I believe that sometimes things just happen, and it is up to us to take the things that happen and decide which ones that we want to assign reason to. So my challenge to you is that when you are going through something, and maybe you're going through something right now, assign a reason that empowers you. And when you're standing at the edge of your airplane, jump. Thank you.